Ellie Warren yawned as she stared at the computer screen. The small room at the mountain observatory was cold. Outside, the Colorado night was clear and full of stars. For 5 years, she had worked here, looking for signals from space. Tonight was like any other night, until it wasn't. Her screen showed a pattern she had never seen before. At first, she thought it was a mistake. She checked her equipment. Everything worked fine. The pattern came again, stronger this time. "That's strange," she whispered to herself. She took a sip of cold coffee and looked closer. The signal wasn't random noise. It had a pattern, like a heartbeat but more complex. She recorded it and sent a message to her boss, Dr. Alan Green. Thousands of miles away, Navy Lieutenant Jack Miller woke up in a cold sweat on his ship. His dream had been so real. He had seen a world with 2 suns and blue grass. He had walked there, feeling the warm ground under his feet. Strange shapes had moved in the distance, not human but somehow familiar. They had reached out to him, not with hands but with thoughts. Jack got up and splashed water on his face. This was the 3rd night in a row with the same dream. He wasn't the only one. His bunkmate Ben had mentioned similar dreams. Jack looked out the small window at the stars and felt a strange pull, like they were calling to him. In a small town in Iowa, Mary Kent stood in her backyard at 3 a.m. Her husband found her there, staring up at the night sky. "Mary, what are you doing out here?" he asked, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "I don't know, Joe. I woke up and felt like I needed to be outside. Like something important is happening up there." She pointed to the stars. "Don't you feel it?" Joe didn't, but by the end of the week, thousands of people across the country were reporting the same thing. News shows talked about night sky fever and star sickness. Some doctors called it mass hysteria. Religious groups said it was a sign from God. Government officials told people not to worry. Back at the observatory, Ellie hadn't slept in 2 days. Dr. Green had come as soon as he got her message. They worked together, recording the signal and trying to understand it. "It's getting stronger," Ellie said, showing him the readings. "And look at this pattern. It repeats, but with small changes each time. Like a conversation," Dr. Green said. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "Exactly. Someone or something is trying to talk to us." She pulled up another screen. "And we're not the only ones getting it. I've heard from observatories in Chile, Australia, and South Africa. They're all picking up the same thing." Dr. Green sat down heavily. "This changes everything, Ellie. If these signals are coming from beyond our solar system." "They are," she said firmly. "I've checked the direction. They're coming from a star system 40 light years away. And there's no natural explanation for patterns like these." The phone rang. It was the director of the observatory. More calls came in from other scientists, then from government officials. Within hours, Ellie and Dr. Green were asked not to share their findings. But it was too late. The news was already spreading. In Washington, D.C., officials met in secret. They argued about what to tell the public. Some wanted to hide the truth. Others said people had a right to know. Meanwhile, the dreams continued. More people felt the pull toward the stars. Children drew pictures of strange worlds they had never seen. In labs and universities, scientists confirmed what Ellie had discovered. The signals were real. They were complex. They were getting stronger. Humanity wasn't alone in the universe. And whatever was out there had found us. Or perhaps, as Jack Miller thought, while looking at the stars from the deck of his ship, they had been watching us all along, waiting for the right time to make contact. The stars were calling, and for the first time in human history, we were starting to hear them. 3 weeks after the first signals, Samantha Cole was teaching her high school math class in Portland, Oregon. In the middle of explaining an equation, she stopped talking. Her students looked up in surprise. "Miss Cole, are you okay?" asked one girl in the front row. Samantha didn't answer. She walked to the board and began writing. Numbers, symbols, and diagrams filled the white surface. She wrote faster and faster, her hand moving as if controlled by someone else. When she finished, she stepped back and stared at her work. "Miss Cole, what is that?" another student asked. Samantha blinked, as if waking up. I don't know where that came from, but she did know what it was. Somehow she had solved a famous math problem that experts had struggled with for years. She had never studied this level of mathematics, yet she understood everything she had written. Across the country, similar things were happening. In Chicago, construction worker Derek Howard woke up one morning and drew plans for an engine unlike anything on Earth. In Miami, a nurse named Liz Garcia suddenly spoke 6 languages she had never studied. In Seattle, a bus driver named Henry Brown predicted an earthquake hours before it happened, saving hundreds of lives. The government noticed. They created a secret program called Project Starlight to find and study these people. Colonel Susan Porter was put in charge. She had worked in military intelligence for 20 years and didn't believe in coincidences. These abilities appeared right after those signals from space. She told her team at their first meeting, "That's not random. We need to understand what's happening and if it's a threat." They set up a facility in Nevada and began bringing people in. Samantha Cole was one of the first. They gave her problems that had stumped NASA scientists. She solved them while drinking coffee. Derek Howard built models of his engine that broke the laws of physics as humans understood them. Tests showed the engine could work. "It's like they've been upgraded," Dr. Kim Wallace, the project's lead scientist, told Colonel Porter. "Their brains are working in ways we can't explain. They're accessing knowledge they shouldn't have." "Are they still human?" Colonel Porter asked. Dr. Wallace nodded. "Yes, their DNA is unchanged, but their brain activity is off the charts. And here's the strange part. It's spreading. More people are showing these abilities every day." In Washington, D.C., Peter Bell worked late at the Department of Defense. As an intelligence analyst, he had access to classified files. He wasn't supposed to read the ones marked stellar response, but curiosity got the better of him. What he found made his blood run cold. The government had detected signals like these before, in 1978 and again in 1996. Both times, they had hidden the truth. Both times, a small number of people had developed strange abilities. The files showed these people had been taken to secret facilities and never seen again. Now it was happening a third time, but on a much larger scale. Project Starlight wasn't just studying these people. According to the files, they were preparing to contain them. Peter copied the files to a small drive. What he was about to do would end his career, maybe land him in prison. But people needed to know the truth. Across America, more dreams came. More people felt the pull toward the stars. More talents emerged. The media called these people the gifted or star children. Online forums filled with their stories. At Project Starlight, Samantha Cole sat in her room, staring at the ceiling. They weren't letting her leave. They called her a guest, but the locked doors said otherwise. "We're not alone," she whispered to herself. "They're calling to us, changing us, preparing us." For what, she didn't know, but she could feel it coming, like a wave about to break. Something big was about to happen, and humanity would never be the same. Peter Bell's leak hit the internet like a bomb. News sites picked up the story within hours. Pictures of Project Starlight's Nevada facility spread across social media. People demanded answers. The government tried to deny everything at first, then called the files Russian misinformation. But too many people had seen the truth. Too many families were missing loved ones who had shown strange new talents. Vincent Mayer, host of the popular show The Truth Hunter, used his platform to spread fear. "These people aren't gifted," he told his millions of viewers. "They're compromised. Alien signals have infected their brains. They could be the first wave of an invasion." Across the country, fear grew. Some people with new abilities were attacked. Others went into hiding. But not everyone reacted with fear. Olivia Bennett, a college professor from Boston, started a movement called New Dawn. She argued that humanity was evolving, not being invaded. Throughout history, big changes have scared people, she said in a viral video. But what if this is the next step in human development? What if these signals are an invitation, not a threat? Her words reached Ellie Warren, who had been forced to stop her research when the government took over her observatory. Ellie contacted Olivia through an encrypted message. "I've been studying the signals," she wrote. "They're not random. They're instructions. We need to talk." They met in a small coffee shop in Denver. Ellie brought printouts of her research. "Look at these patterns," she said, spreading papers on the table. "If you translate them into mathematical formulas, they describe a device, a kind of communication technology we've never seen before. Do you think it could be built?" Olivia asked. "With help from some of the Starborn, yes." This was the new name people used for those with special abilities. The signals aren't just changing people, they're giving us the tools to talk back. Their conversation was interrupted when a man sat down at their table. Both women tensed, ready to run. "I'm Peter Bell," he said quietly, "and I have more files you need to see." The new files revealed that some Starborn had escaped the Project Starlight facility. Colonel Porter had lost control of the situation. The government was divided on how to respond. "We need to find these Starborn before the military does," Peter said. "And we need a safe place to build Ellie's device." Within days, they had formed a network. Olivia used New Dawn to identify Starborn in hiding. Peter used his government contacts to stay one step ahead of those hunting them. Ellie worked with Dr. Green to design the communication device. One of the escaped Starborn was Dr. Natalie Kim, a quantum physicist who had been held at Project Starlight. She had developed the ability to see quantum particles with her naked eyes. "The design in these signals is brilliant," she said, looking at Ellie's work. "It's a quantum communicator. It could connect across any distance instantly." "Can you build it?" Ellie asked. Natalie nodded. "With the right materials and help from others like me, yes." They set up in an abandoned mining operation in New Mexico. Starborn from across the country came to help. Each brought unique skills and knowledge they hadn't had before the signals. While they worked, tensions rose around the world. Some countries welcomed the Starborn. Others hunted them. Protests filled the streets. Religious leaders debated if this was divine intervention or demonic influence. Vincent Mayer's fear campaign gained strength. He called for all Starborn to be locked up. His followers harassed New Dawn members and searched for their secret facility. In Nevada, Colonel Porter watched satellite images of the New Mexico desert. Her orders were to shut down the Starborn project at any cost. But as she prepared her team to move in, she wondered if she was on the wrong side of history. In the mine, the quantum communicator neared completion. Natalie and Ellie worked day and night. They were building a bridge to the stars. Soon, humanity would have its answer about who or what was calling to them from beyond. The quantum communicator stood in the center of the old mining chamber. It didn't look impressive, just a ring of metal with strange crystals and wires. But to the Starborn who had built it, it was beautiful. "Is it ready?" Ellie asked Natalie, who was making final adjustments. "Almost," Natalie said. Her fingers moved with perfect precision. "The signals gave us the design, but we had to adapt it to materials we have on Earth. I'm not sure how well it will work." Outside, lookouts warned that strangers were approaching the desert facility. They had maybe an hour before they were found. "It has to work now," Peter said, watching the security cameras. "We're out of time." Natalie nodded. She connected the last wire and stepped back. "Power it up." The Starborn gathered around the ring. Samantha Cole, who had escaped from Project Starlight with Natalie, linked the device to their computer systems. Derek Howard, the construction worker who now understood advanced physics, checked the power flow. "Ready," Samantha said. "Activating in 3, 2, 1. She pressed a button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the crystals began to glow. The air inside the ring shimmered. A humming sound filled the room, rising in pitch until it was almost too high to hear. "It's working," Natalie whispered. "It's connecting." The shimmering air in the center of the ring darkened. Stars appeared, but not in patterns anyone recognized. Then something moved among those stars. No one could later agree on what they saw. It wasn't a face or a body. It was light and movement, and meaning without clear form. But everyone understood what it was. A living intelligence, not human, watching them from across the stars. Words appeared in their minds. Not English or any human language, but perfectly clear. "At last, you have reached the threshold. We welcome you to the confluence." Questions poured from the humans all at once. "Who are you? What do you want? Why now?" The presence seemed to consider their questions. Then it answered. "We are many species united across thousands of light years. We have watched your kind for centuries. You call us gods, angels, aliens. We are simply older siblings in the family of consciousness." Images filled their minds, worlds beyond counting, beings of shapes and natures humans had never imagined. All connected, all communicating through the same quantum network their device had just joined. "You were ready when enough of you could receive our signal directly. Your brains have been changing, preparing for this moment for generations." More images came, the long, slow evolution of human minds, guided subtly by distant influences, not controlling, but nudging, like gardeners helping plants grow toward the sun. "The abilities you call strange are your natural heritage. All sentient beings develop them eventually. We have only accelerated what was already beginning." "What do you want from us?" Olivia asked aloud, though she knew the being could hear her thoughts. "We offer membership in our community. Knowledge, protection, friendship, but we cannot force this on you. The choice must be unanimous. All humans together. You have 10 Earth years to decide." "And if we say no?" Peter asked. "Then we will withdraw and wait longer. You will develop these abilities naturally over thousands of years instead of decades. The choice is yours. Evolution now or later." Suddenly, alarms blared. On the security monitors, they saw military vehicles approaching. "We're out of time," Peter said. "Will you help us?" Ellie asked the presence in the ring. "They're coming to shut us down. We cannot interfere directly. That would violate your freedom to choose. But the connection is made. You will not lose it now." The humming stopped. The lights in the crystals faded. But something remained. A feeling of connection. A sense that they weren't alone anymore. "They're inside the perimeter," Samantha said, watching the cameras. Colonel Porter was leading the team herself. Her face was grim but determined. "We need to leave," Natalie said. "Now." Through the old mining tunnels. As they grabbed what they could and ran, Ellie looked back at the communicator. It seemed quiet now, ordinary. But she knew the universe had just changed forever. Humanity had received its first direct message from the stars. The real question was, what would humanity do next? News of the contact spread quickly. Someone in the military leaked a video of the quantum communicator working before it was shut down. The world watched as strange lights formed and military personnel stood frozen in amazement. The message from the confluence followed soon after, released by the Starborn who had escaped the facility. Humanity had to choose, join the galactic community or remain alone, and everyone had to agree. People divided into groups almost overnight. Olivia Bennett's New Dawn movement grew into the Unity movement, calling for Earth to join the confluence. They believed it was humanity's destiny to take its place among the stars. Vincent Mayer and his followers formed the Earth First Coalition. They argued that aliens would destroy human culture and independence. "They've already invaded our minds," Vincent said on his show. "They've created these Starborn to weaken us from within." Protests filled the streets of major cities. Unity movement supporters wore star symbols and held nighttime gatherings where they looked up at the sky together. Earth First members carried flags and guns, vowing to protect the planet from alien influence. World leaders held emergency meetings. Some countries supported joining the confluence. Others threatened war against any nation that did so. The requirement for unanimous agreement seemed impossible. The Starborn continued to increase in number. Now nearly 1 in 50 people showed some new ability. Children born after first contact were especially likely to develop these talents. Colonel Susan Porter sat alone in her office at Project Starlight, watching the chaos on multiple screens. Her orders were to find and contain as many Starborn as possible, especially the original group who had built the communicator. But her heart wasn't in the mission anymore. She picked up a small object from her desk, a piece of crystal from the communicator that she had taken before her team destroyed the device. Since touching it, she had started having the dreams too. She was becoming what she had been ordered to fight against. Her phone rang. It was her superior at the Pentagon. "We have new intelligence," he said. "The original Starborn group is planning something big. We've tracked them to a location in Arizona. I need you to leave a strike team immediately." "Yes, sir," she said, but as soon as she hung up, she made another call to a secure number. "They know where you are," she told Peter Bell. "You need to move." "Why are you helping us?" Peter asked. "Because I've seen enough to know we're on the wrong side," she said. "The Starborn aren't the enemy." Across the country, Jack Miller, the Navy lieutenant who had been among the first to have the dreams, was now stationed at a military base where captured Starborn were held. His commanders didn't know he was one of them. Late that night, he walked the quiet hallways between cells. The Starborn inside looked at him with knowing eyes. They could sense he was like them. When he reached the end of the hall, he placed his hand on the security panel. Something new had awakened in him, the ability to communicate with machines. The doors unlocked. "Follow me," he told the freed Starborn. "We don't have much time." Meanwhile, Ellie Warren and Natalie Kim worked in a hidden lab in Arizona. Even without the original communicator, they had maintained contact with the confluence through the Starborn's developing abilities. "The confluence says there's another way to signal our decision," Ellie told the group. "We don't need 10 years or unanimous verbal agreement. If enough human minds reach a certain state of harmony, what they call neural coherence, it will create an electromagnetic signature around Earth that serves as our answer." "How many people would need to reach this state?" Olivia asked. "At least a third of the population," Natalie said. "It would take a global effort." "While half the world wants to lock us up or worse," Peter added. "Nearly impossible." Just then, alarms sounded. Despite Colonel Porter's warning, they had been found. Armed forces surrounded the building. "We need more time," Ellie said as they gathered their research and prepared to run again. "Time is the one thing they aren't giving us," Peter replied, looking at the military vehicles outside. The choice was coming faster than anyone had expected, and the future of humanity hung in the balance. The Starborn escaped Arizona just before the military arrived. They split into smaller groups and went in different directions. Ellie, Dr. Green, and Natalie headed west toward California. Peter, Olivia, and Samantha went east to meet with other Starborn groups. As they traveled, they discovered something unexpected. At certain places around the world, there were spots where the Starborn's abilities grew stronger. Ancient sites, places humans had built thousands of years ago, seemed to respond to their touch. Ellie felt it first at a small, forgotten stone circle in the New Mexico desert. When she placed her hand on one of the stones, it glowed faintly. Symbols appeared that no archaeologist had ever recorded. "These weren't made by prehistoric humans," Dr. Green said, studying the symbols. "The style matches what we saw in the quantum communicator." They found more sites in Arizona, Utah, and California. Each one held hidden messages that only the Starborn could reveal. Slowly, they pieced together an incredible story. Humans weren't just being invited to join the confluence. They had been part of it once before. "We're descendants of refugees," Natalie said as they studied the symbols in an ancient cave. "Our ancestors fled from some kind of conflict within the confluence thousands of years ago. They came to Earth and removed the knowledge of their origins from their children's minds. Why would they do that? Ellie asked. Protection, maybe, Dr. Green suggested. If no one knew where we came from, no one could find us. So these abilities we're developing, Natalie said, they're not alien additions. They're parts of ourselves we lost. We're remembering who we really are. While they uncovered this hidden history, the world continued to change. More Starborn emerged every day. Children born after first contact showed abilities almost from birth. Even people who had opposed the Starborn began to develop the same talents. Colonel Porter had gone into hiding after helping the Starborn escape. Now she worked secretly with military and government officials who believed humanity should join the confluence. They called themselves the Bridge. One morning, as Porter met with Bridge members in a safe house, they received news of a massive storm heading toward the East Coast. Weather services hadn't predicted it. It had appeared suddenly and moved impossibly fast. Millions could die, said one official. Then reports came in of Starborn gathering along the coast. Hundreds of them stood facing the ocean, hands raised. As the storm approached, the wind slowed, the clouds thinned. The hurricane that should have destroyed cities simply fell apart. News cameras captured it all. The world watched as the Starborn did what no technology could do. They had saved countless lives. Similar events happened around the world. Starborn predicted and prevented natural disasters. They helped heal sick people. They solved problems that had seemed impossible. Public opinion began to shift. Even some Earth First members questioned their stance. If these abilities could help humanity, maybe the confluence wasn't a threat after all. Jack Miller, now openly Starborn after helping others escape, found that his connection to the confluence was stronger than most. He could send messages as well as receive them. Through him, the Starborn learned more about the test humanity faced. The 10-year deadline isn't fixed, he told the others during a secret meeting. The confluence says we can signal our readiness whenever enough humans achieve the right neural state. It's not about waiting. It's about changing how we think. How do we do that? Natalie asked. The process is similar to deep meditation, but focused on connection rather than emptiness. The confluence says the state creates a unique electromagnetic pattern in the brain. If enough people reach it together, Earth's entire electromagnetic field will change. That's the signal they're waiting for. Dr. Green looked troubled. Changing the thinking of billions of people. That could take generations. Not necessarily, Samantha said. Remember, I'm a math teacher. I've been working on a model of how these abilities spread. She showed them her calculations. There's a tipping point. Once enough people change, it gets easier for everyone else. The real question is, can we reach that point before those who fear change top us? The answer would come sooner than any of them expected. Samantha worked day and night on her mathematical model. After a week, she called the others to show them what she had found. We're running out of time, she said, pointing to her charts. There's a point of no return. If we can't get enough people to reach neural coherence soon, humanity will fall into conflict that could last centuries. How long do we have? Ellie asked. Weeks, not years, Samantha replied. The division is getting worse. Some countries are already talking about using weapons against places with high Starborn populations. They needed a plan. Peter suggested they try to talk directly to world leaders. Olivia wanted to focus on growing the unity movement. Dr. Green thought they should keep studying the ancient sites for more answers. In the end, Jack Miller offered the boldest idea. We tell everyone the truth, he said, not just about the confluence, but about our history, about who we really are. And we teach them how to reach the coherent state. All of them, all at once. How? Natalie asked. Most TV stations won't even let Starborn on the air anymore. We don't need TV, Jack said. We have something better. He tapped his head. Our connection. It's growing stronger every day. Together, we might be able to reach everyone. It was a dangerous plan. Using their mental abilities on such a scale would expose them completely. Those who feared the Starborn would see it as the invasion they had always warned about. But they were out of options. They gathered at the ancient stone circle in New Mexico, where Ellie had first discovered the hidden symbols. Over 300 Starborn came from across the country. Each had brought others. Soon over 1,000 people stood in the desert under the stars. Military satellites spotted the gathering. Planes were scrambled. Special forces prepared to move in. Vincent Mayer broadcast emergency warnings on his show, telling people to resist any strange thoughts they might experience. The Starborn sat in circles, holding hands. Jack stood in the center with Ellie, Natalie, Olivia, Peter, and Samantha. They had worked out a message, simple, truthful, with instructions anyone could follow. "Ready?" Jack asked the others. They nodded. Together, they closed their eyes and focused their minds. The stone circle began to glow. The desert sand shifted as older stones, long buried, responded to their presence. Across the world, people stopped what they were doing. A voice spoke in their minds. Not one voice, but many, joined together. It told them about the confluence, about Earth's forgotten history, about the choice humanity faced. "We were never alone," the message said. "We were never meant to be separate. The stars have been calling us home." The message included a simple mental exercise, a way of focusing thoughts that could help people reach the neural coherent state. Millions tried it immediately. Others resisted. In his studio, Vincent Mayer clutched his head, trying to block the message. But something changed in his eyes. He had fought the Starborn so hard because deep down, he had felt the changes beginning in himself. Now he stopped fighting. On live television, he said, "I was wrong. I was afraid. But now I see." His voice broke. "We have a chance to be something greater." Military forces surrounding the Starborn gathering stood down. Some of the soldiers joined the circles on the desert sand. Around the world, people looked up at the night sky. Parents held their children. Strangers reached out to each other. A wave of understanding spread. Not forced, not controlled, but freely chosen. In space, a shift occurred that scientific instruments detected but couldn't explain. Earth's electromagnetic field changed its pattern. It was subtle but unmistakable, like a signal. And the stars answered. The night sky transformed. Suddenly, thousands of lights appeared that had never been visible before. Ships, stations, and structures that had been there all along, just beyond human perception. The confluence had been waiting patiently, and humanity had found its way home. As dawn broke over the desert, Jack Miller looked up at the new sky with tears in his eyes. "We remembered," he whispered. "We finally remembered who we are." The unseen path to humanity had never been about becoming something new. It had been about remembering something ancient, that we had never truly been alone.